Hey, and welcome to the first episode of the I Know About It podcast. I am your host, Noah Arnold, and I really didn't think I'd be doing a podcast. I know everybody's got a cliche, they got a podcast, but you know, if you don't know me, I'm a broadcast journalism student looking to get into sports, trying to be a sports broadcaster. I'm currently a senior at the University of South Carolina. And I just feel like it's probably an unwritten rule that I have to have a podcast. So I'm just going to have one. I'm usually going to try to keep this to probably under 30 minutes, I would say. And I'm just going to probably just talk about sports. Usually, I'm a college football fan at heart, NFL fan, big pro wrestling fan, and specifically the main two in the United States, which is WWE and AEW. But you also hear me talk a lot about the company I work for, which is Extreme World Wrestling, which is a indie company up in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And I've been working with them since about early mid-June of this year, which is 2024. And since then, I have done so much for this company. They've provided me a great opportunity to just get my foot in the business and just learn, experience all that I really need, whether it's commentary, camera work, whatever. They've been great. So you'll probably hear me, if I'm not talking about a specific topic, hear me rant about that. But first episode, not really going to get the formalities out the way because it's gonna be a lot of big predictions show. Usually every week I'm going to do a college football prediction show, and I'm probably going to do an NFL week preview. So it's maybe a week review once I maybe do a Tuesday, Thursday format I may do. Not too sure. I'm also, for this week, because I said I'm a WWE fan, I'm going to do a preview and predictions for Bad Blood, which is out in Atlanta, State Farm Stadium, home of my beloved Atlanta Falcons. And that show looks to be pretty stacked for a B-level pay-per-view. And it's still only 5 matches, but it's a stacked card for 5 matches. But I'm probably not going to be able to watch that live because I said college student, and I will be at the Ole Miss South Carolina game. And as much as I love professional wrestling, I'm going to choose to watch college football live over a wrestling event. I'm sorry to say, especially once the Clemson Tigers are going to be playing Florida State that Saturday night, which maybe if y'all don't know, if y'all don't follow me on Twitter, which is at Prime Noah 24, and it's usually it's all my socials as well. It's also my Instagram, but I'm mainly on Twitter, and I'm a lifelong diehard Clemson fan, but I go to South Carolina and I cover sports. It is what it is. Hey, it was cheap. It's not cheap. I still get to live at home. Don't have to pay rent. I'm on scholarship, so that's nice. I don't have to have any student loans once I graduate college, which I'm very lucky to say that. But I'm already ranted for about 4 minutes. I'm a bit of a yapper. So I'm going to get to the college football predictions for this week. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, last week, week 5, I went 8-2. On the season so far, I'm 38-20. My predictions, I usually predict about 10 games a week. The only time I don't think I predicted 10 games was week 0, because there wasn't 10 games to predict. But I'm going to start from the top. Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Michigan State at the 6th-ranked Oregon Ducks. I'm looking here on ESPN, and I like Michigan State long-term. I was not a fan of them heading into this year, but I like what the new coach, Jonathan Smith, is doing. I really liked him at Oregon State. I think he just fit in well with there, but Michigan State is a very hard rebuild, very long rebuild. And it's going to take some time in that conference. And Oregon winning this game as I'm locking this in. Dylan Gabriel, 9 touchdowns, 1 pick so far this year. Oregon's had a bit of a slow start first 2 weeks with Idaho and Boise, but they're not playing a team from Idaho. They've dominated 49-14 in the Civil War against Oregon State, 34-13 in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. And I think it's going to be much of the same back at home against the Michigan State Spartans. But as I said, not this year, but maybe next year for Smith and the crew. I like the Spartans' direction with hiccups. Aiden Childs, but just not for that game. And also on Friday night, same time, 9 p.m., Syracuse and the 25th ranked UNLV Rebels, which is tied for 25th with Texas A&M, which that game I'll get into next. UNLV, even without their, Sluka, who, honestly, if he was demanding that much money from UNLV for the kind of quarterback he was, I could not imagine what some other quarterbacks get to transfer, like maybe a Cam Ward or a guy like that. It's insane that a guy at his level can get that kind of contract for what he's produced. But, UNLV, 4-0 on the season, 59-14 victory against Fresno last week, which shocked me. I thought they would win, but I didn't think they'd win that much. But I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going with Syracuse. I really like this Orange team. I think Kyle McCord did not really fit into Ohio State last year when he was with there. He wasn't the whole problem, but wasn't fantastic. I think, and the same thing I'll get into later, some quarterbacks are meant to be certain places. It's just a bit of a different... It's different when you're the starting QB at Ohio State and the starting quarterback at Syracuse. It's a bit different, and I think Kyle McCord fits in a little better with Syracuse than he does Ohio State. So I'm going with the Orange. I think it's going to be their first top 25 victory with their new coach, but I really like this run game with Allen. I really like Kyle McCord so far this season, and I think Syracuse is going to pull off a massive upset on Friday night. And I'm looking at the ESPN matchup predictor, and I'm not a analytics guy, despite being only 21 years old. I do not understand analytics, and I'm also not a technology person. So I really don't know how UNLV is favored. Well, I know how they're favored, but I don't know how they have a 79.4% chance of victory according to ESPN's FPI. I think that's a bit much. I know I'm picking Syracuse, but I still think surprise is not closer than what it is. Next up, as I said, we're talking about the other 25th ranked team, Texas A&M, and I really like what they're heading with Mike Elko. It's a great defensive team, and I thought the week 1 loss to Notre Dame was expected. Defensive slugger. Hard fought against the Irish, and they've pulled off a sling of victories since then. They had that close last 2 weeks with Bowling Green and Arkansas. And then, of course, with Missouri coming out with double overtime against Vandy. Close loss to Boston College, which I really like Boston College. But I'm going to go with Texas A&M on this one. I think they found their quarterback with Marcel Reed. I think the true freshman provides just a better spark than what Connor Weigman was providing. So far, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Let me see his rushing real quick. And, he's been fantastic on the ground, too. He's exactly what this Texas A&M team needs, which is a dual-threat quarterback at this point in time. And I think with Mike Elko, this will be his first signature victory. And that's not to say Mizzou is out of it. I still think they can make the playoffs this year, but I'm going with Texas A&M to pull off this one. And I think it's going to be low scoring, probably 24-21 feels right. maybe 27-21. Feels right for this game. Next up on the slate I had here, I'm going with all these in order by when the kickoff's happening. So I'm getting all the noon games right now. The other one is SMU and the, what ranked are they? 22nd ranked Louisville Cardinals. And, last week SMU, I knew they were going to beat Florida State. I knew it was a good SMU team. But, man, I don't know if it's SMU or Florida State, but, God, they just torched Florida State last week. And the week before against TCU, 66-42, but that game was a lot more by SMU turning the ball over than it was SMU going crazy on offense. But I'm going with Louisville for this one. I think SMU's found their quarterback in Jennings. He provides, just as a dual threat, much more of a spark than Preston Stone. But I really like Shaw in this Louisville team. Tough game last week against Notre Dame, but I still think Louisville is about the third or second best team in the ACC. They brought back a ton of weapons from last year. Fantastic on defense still. And I think that Shaw at home, he's just going to dunk, love what Braum brings to Braum offense. A lot of mid-ranges. I think Louisville's going to pull this one off here thanks to the arm of Shaw, which I could not tell you that in 2024 Tyler Shaw would be winning victories in the ACC, but that's modern college football for you. 3:30 CBS is still a pain to me that you have the classic SEC on CBS theme song, and we will be heading to Columbus, Ohio. That will never not be weird to me. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but when I hear that song, I think of the Iron Bowl. I think of a random Tennessee-Florida game. That just doesn't sit right to me. That's just going to be a Ohio State or a Michigan game. That will never be right to me. With that being said, Ohio State's winning this one. Iowa offensively been better this year. I mean, they put up 40 against a pretty decent Illinois State team. They put up 38 on Troy, 31 on Minnesota last week. But I still don't think Cade McNamara, I don't even know if he's still the starter. Yeah, he is still a starter. Yeah, he only threw 62 yards last week. I didn't, because I was at the XWW last week, I couldn't keep up with too many games last week besides like the big ones. So, yeah, the Minnesota-Iowa game slipped my mind, and Cade McNamara, this just Iowa team in general, I don't want them to ever change. I love that we have a college football version of the Virginia Cavaliers. I love it. I love Iowa. I love watching them play. And Ohio State's just been utterly dominant. People crap on Will Howard. I liked Will Howard a lot when he was at Kansas State. And I think he was a great get. He was a perfect fit for Ohio State in the transfer portal. Yes, they could have got Cameron Ward, and I think they probably should have got Cameron Ward. But Will Howard is just a calm, steady presence, and he can deliver in the big moments, and I think that's exactly what Ohio State needs. This defense has been so great this season so far, and Kayshawn Judkins, you play against him in NCAA 25, it's a beatdown, and I think that's going to happen with Iowa as well as this game. I think it's going to be kind of similar to the Penn State-Iowa game a year ago, where it's just 31-0, like Iowa. Maybe it might be similar to the Clemson-Georgia game this year, where it may be close at halftime, but eventually the Iowa defense just, when they're on the field so much of the time, I think eventually they're just going to break. And I expect to be close in the first half. Ohio State pulls away in the second half, so I'm going with the Buckeyes here. The game I will be at when the season started and the schedule was announced, this was the game that every Carolina fan circled. And I think if you're a college football fan, this should have been one of the games that you had circled, period, 12th ranked Ole Miss coming off a insane upset loss to Kentucky a week ago, going against South Carolina, coming off a bye week. And the week before, they played Akron with Robbie Ashford, all people, starting at quarterback. A game, first ever football game I called, which I called for a class alongside two others on the roof of Williams-Brice Stadium, 50-7 against Akron, which I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's kind of weird that a dire Clemson fan and my first ever football game I called was for Carolina class, and it was on the roof of Williams-Brice Stadium. That's always just going to be weird to me. And for this game, Ole Miss 9.5-point favorites. I think that's a little much. But obviously, this is going to be the Juice Wells return game. This is going to be Lane Kiffin coming to town. It's always going to be something. Lenore Sellers will be starting this game after sitting out the Akron game and the bye week. Carolina ground and pound versus Ole Miss high-flying offense. They have the best receiver in the country in Trey Harris. I have been flip-flopping back and forth on this game for months, for weeks, for days. But I think when Lenore Sellers is healthy, I think South Carolina's a top 20 team in the country, and that's a hot take. But I really love this defense. I like the pieces they have at wide receiver. Don't necessarily think they've clicked so far, but I really do think that they have the pieces there. If you would ask me last week, I think Carolina wins, but coming off a loss, I think Ole Miss gets the win in Williams-Brice. I just think they're going to be a lot more focused. They kind of have the cliches, if you will, in sports and all that. Coming off a loss, you play better. And I think that's going to be true this game. But I think this is going to be the game of the day. I think if Ole Miss didn't lose, there was a good chance game day maybe even could have gone back to South Carolina, in all honesty. Because this is, in my opinion, this is the biggest game of the weekend. And it's going to be probably the most entertaining game of the weekend, which is, I will be there. I was there for the LSU game as well, which was so far been the most entertaining game besides the Bama-Georgia game, been the most entertaining game all season. But as I said, I think it's going to be another heartbreaker for South Carolina. And sitting at 3-2 for the Gamecocks, I think if you finish 9-3 in your South Carolina and you have a good end of the season, let me look at their schedule real quick. If you have a good end of the season, and let's say your only other loss, if you're Carolina, it could maybe be next week against Alabama. And let's say you start 3-3 with close losses against LSU, which you probably should have won, and close loss to Ole Miss. And if you can play Bama close and you rack off wins at Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Vandy, Mizzou, Wofford, and Clemson, you may have an argument to be in the playoffs this year. With 12 teams, it's weird. And I'm going to focus a lot more on Carolina Clemson, if you don't know, because those are two teams I grew up watching. And if you go 9-3 in the SEC, especially you go off a 6-game win streak at the end of the season, you might have an argument to make it. But Carolina, honestly, this is a must-win for them. A must-win, but I'm going with the Rebels on this one. Next up on the slate, if you would have asked me to start the season, this would have been Clemson's biggest game, because any rational person knew Clemson was going to get smoked out the get-go against Georgia. But what we did not guess out the get-go is the explosion of Clemson's offense after the Georgia game. The App State game, and I tweeted this out, Clemson beat damn near an NFL team in that 2018 Bama team by 30 points in a national championship game. I was more impressed by the 66-20 victory over App State on that random Saturday night the week after we lost to Georgia. I was in utter shock. I still cannot believe that happened. I still can't believe we've been looking like this on offense. NC State is no schlubs on defense. On offense, they were a bit shaky, but Kate Klubnik has found his confidence. This team has found a confidence, found the deep ball, has been able to stretch the ball down the field. And that's what Clemson's been missing. If you can, just the deep ball that Clemson has can open up this offense so much because we have a tremendous run game. I like our backs. Phil Maffa is obviously our bell cow, but I don't think Jay Haynes and Keith Adams are bad, and Jarvis Green may get some time. But just the ability to not have defense stack the box the whole time is so been missing since 2020. It is a miss. We haven't had a Clemson offense look like this since the last presidential election. That's how insane this is. And speaking of insanity, move to the other side, Florida State. Everybody, if you were smart, knew Florida State was not going to be the same team they were last year. I said last year was a lightning in a bottle. We have this in college football. You can have a team that doesn't have the best head coach, can strike and go on a great run with a really good team. Like Coach O with 2019 LSU. I think Mike Norvell is that, and I think his 2019 LSU was last year, and they simply couldn't deliver because they had Jordan Travis get hurt. And now this year it's just been a complete free fall. And I think it continues against Clemson. Brock Glenn will be the starting quarterback, which I'm disappointed in. Brock Glenn, I think, provides a little more than DJ just with his leg game. And Clemson does occasionally struggle with a mobile quarterback, but I still don't think Clemson's going to struggle too much. I said, but the last 3 games, we're all at home. This is the first road game Clemson's had all year. If Florida State at night the crowd can get into this, and if Florida State, let's say at the get-go, gets like a big touchdown or and takeaway, you maybe a fight, but I just don't see how Florida State can pull this one off. And going back on a tangent with DJ, like with Cal McCord, some guys, it's a little bit different. You're starting quarterback at Clemson versus the starting quarterback at Oregon State. It's a little bit different. Starting quarterback at Oregon State, it's a little different from being a starting quarterback at Florida State. And DJ has the arm talent. He doesn't never really had the accuracy, but it's really been his confidence. And he seems like a great dude, great leader. Nobody's ever really said a bad word about DJ the person, Uyunglele. But truly, if he can get the mental aspect, he can be a good quarterback, and I think he can be a good backup and occasional starter for an NFL team. He has the look. He has the arm talent. If you can just get a coach that can focus on the mental aspect, I think DJ can still be an okay quarterback, which we saw last year at Oregon State. But it has just been an unmitigated disaster for Florida State, and it's shocking. We're sitting here, and it's not shocking that Florida State has a loss. Right. It's not shocking that they've lost the game already. But it's shocking that we're sitting here and game day isn't at this game. Look at the preseason projection. This looked like it was going to be locked in easily for an ABC 7:30 Saturday primetime game because Clemson and Florida State always seemingly plays ABC, whether it's at noon or 3:30 AB or the primetime. It always seems like this is the game that they hit, but Florida's going to start 1-5, and I don't even think this is worst case scenario. This is beyond worst case scenario for Florida State. And I know I'm not a Mike Norvell guy, and it may sound biased, but I don't know if he survives after this season. This seems like a 2012 Gene Chizik, 2021 Coach O situation. I think he's gone after this year, maybe after this year, but I think for sure after next year. I don't think Mike Norvell is going to be coaching by 2026 in Tallahassee, unless he's returning, coaching another team. I just don't see it how that happens. Still rambling. I wanted to get this under 30 minutes, but I'm at 25, so that's first episode. It's fine. Now another game that I think is going to be pretty good. Number 4, Tennessee at Arkansas. It's the ABC primetime slot. They're going to be flying Herb Street from Berkeley, California to Fayetteville, Arkansas for this. That should be fun. And yeah, Tennessee, I still don't know how to say their quarterback's name. Imalavia, maybe. Yeah, he is the absolute truth at Tennessee, but this Tennessee ground game is what I think has been the kind of the most eye-opening. Tennessee has been managed to keep him comfortable. They're really young quarter comfortable by just having a really good ground game with Dylan Sampson and the crew. And on the road, Arkansas got a tough loss to A&M a week ago, but they're not going to go away lightly. They should have beat Oklahoma State. They are right there against A&M, but just Arkansas cannot find the offense. They're like the SEC's version of, not as bad as Iowa, but kind of like a Minnesota, if you will. They just can't get it clicking, on offense. And Taylor Green, I don't really think he's the quarterback that can pull off a victory here against the 4th-ranked team in the country. He's not terrible. If Arkansas can get to maybe 225 or 200 rushing yards, they may have a shot. But, yeah, I think Tennessee pulls this one off. And I think it will be about maybe a 38-21 game. I can see this going. So I'm going with the Volunteers on this one. Night game is a national championship rematch between two teams that are nothing like they were just a few short months ago. 10th-ranked Michigan at Seattle take on the Washington Huskies. And I can't think back on a time in sports history where we have a championship rematch, the season after that's happened, where both teams are just so drastically different. With the coaching staffs, the rosters, it is an entirely different team, entirely different everything, entirely different vibes around the programs. But with this one, Michigan, they've just said, screw finding a quarterback. We're just going to basically just run a triple option. And it's worked so far, and honestly, I got to commend them for that. They've really found a way to just squeak and claw away out of games after the Texas game, and because all the games have been close, besides the game they got blown out in. Washington, tough loss a week ago on the road on a Friday night across country in New Jersey to play Rutgers. And Will Rogers been solid this season. Washington offensively has been okay. They haven't been great. They've been okay. But I still think on the road with this Michigan team, I think they're going to find another way to pull this one off. I know Washington's favored. Yeah, but they're a 2.5-point favorite, 58% chance of winning according on the ESPN website here. But I just think right now they found their identity this season, which is it's not going to be throwing the ball. It's going to be pounding it down your throat. It's going to be running. Orgy has, I don't know if he's thrown over 100 yards so far this season. I'm looking at his stats. He threw 86 a week ago. Yeah, he hasn't. He threw 32 in the win against USC, which is insane to me that in 2024 we have a top 15 matchup where one quarterback throws for 32 yards and they win the game. And it wasn't like an injury or nothing. It was just the whole game. They threw 32 yards. I don't know if that's happened since, the triple option days. And that's just insane to think about that, this is where Michigan is. But I think Michigan goes on the road, pulls off a very close, going to be very low scoring game. They've won both last 3 weeks, 27-24. I think it finishes in that range. 24-17, I think, is about fair, about where it's probably going to be. And I believe we have one game left. Yep, that's the game day, game of the week. The Cowgorithm has finally won. Game day is in Berkeley for a 10:30 kickoff. It's kind of dumb. Local time, and it will be 7:30. But I saw this tweet. I think it was by Reddit College Football Twitter account, where either he tweeted or retweeted it. The Cow Band has a call time of 2 a.m. for a game that doesn't kick off till 7:30 p.m. Local times for game day and in the kickoff. They did this last year. ESPN did this last year with Colorado. But if you figure about 2 weeks ahead of time, which is usually when they announce, you look at the schedule, you know that Cal Miami is a likely matchup for game day, at least in the top 2 or 3. I don't know why you would not schedule to where this game's going to be like a 7:30 kickoff or 8 o'clock, or 7, like sometime earlier. If you kind of figure this is where the game's going to be, game day is going to be, and it's going to be the game of the week. But for this game, I think Cal is going to show out. I think 10-point spread is way, way much. I think Cal is going to manage to stay in this game with the ground game of Thomas. This defense has been so good this year. This is a top 10 defense in the country. Mendoza gets just enough done. He obviously is not going to beat you with his legs. He is about the most game manager quarterback for any team in the country. But I think Miami goes on the road, veteran like Cam Ward. He's been in these environments, West Coast guy with Washington State last year. And I think the tough win last week against Virginia Tech provides his Miami team enough spark, enough energy to get a tough road victory out of this one. I think it's going to be about maybe a 31, it might be 10 point might be right. I think it might be 31-21 is what I'm picking here. But I think maybe Miami gets like a late touchdown to go up by 2 scores late. But I think Cal is going to come out fighting with this team. Just a tremendous rushing team. But this Miami team is the best team in the ACC at the moment. I think they're probably the best team in the ACC going forward. But with Cal, they've been a big spark here in the ACC. Atlantic Coast, California. And they've been a good ad rather than like Stanford. But I just don't see how... what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, like, I just don't see how Cal has enough firepower on offense to keep up with this one. I just think that Mendoza, game manager type of guy, I just don't see how he can necessarily... You can win with him. You can't win because of him. And I think in this game against this Miami team, we saw with Kyron Jones, you need to have a quarterback put on an all-star performance to beat this Miami team and keep up with this high-flying offense. And I just don't think Cal has the weapons, has the juice to keep up with the Miami Hurricanes. That's my predictions for this week. Going to run this back real quick. I said Oregon over Michigan State, Syracuse over UNLV, Louisville over SMU, Texas A&M over Mizzou, Ohio State over Iowa, Ole Miss over South Carolina, Clemson over Florida State, Tennessee over Arkansas, Michigan over Washington, and Miami over Cal. Now let's do an insanely hard switch up to a event that I will not be seeing live. Maybe on Sunday morning, maybe not. I don't know. Bad Blood. This is a solid card. And I'm not as much of a hater of a 5-match card as some others are. If it's a below pay-per-view like this, it's fine to have a 5-match card. People, for years, wanted the black and gold era of NXT back. And if you look back on those black and gold era of NXTs, there's a lot of 5 matches, 6 matches, around that frame. All all hitters, no fillers. And this card is, well, all pretty good hitters. Not a lot of, no filler here. And yeah, I haven't really been watching a whole lot of weekly TV the last couple of weeks. Just because, football's been on. I've been really busy as well. But I think this is going to be a really good card, but it looks to be that I think it's going to be a heel-dominated card as well. And I've really at the TV, they have a really good SmackDown tomorrow night. But they've already announced, well, I haven't announced, but it's been leaked. Punk and Drew will start the show while the tag team match will close the show. And that pretty much signals that my prediction is The Rock will be showing up at the show. They've been having this Bad Blood show up like crazy over the months. Big names, like hyping this up, like Metro Booming. Or Booming, not Booming. Commercials have been running forever. I think they want people to pay attention to this, and they want to take advantage of, as we talked about with college football predictions. It's not a tremendous week of action, now, especially in the primetime slot. I mean, the primetime games is Florida State Clemson, a 1-4 Florida State team. It's Arkansas, Tennessee. Arkansas is not great. It's probably going to be a blowout game. Washington, Michigan, maybe decent, but not a lot of people are going to care for that because two teams that are not really appealing for a casual viewer and two teams that are completely different from last year. I think it's smart to have The Rock come in and try and get some level of buzz heading into War Games, which I guess he will probably be involved with War Games somewhat, Survivor Series somewhat. Team Good Bloodline and Team Bad Bloodline. But it just sucks, being a massive Punk and Drew guy, that it's not going to main event. But if The Rock is coming back, I get it. But honestly, I think if you're WWE, it may be smarter to start the show with that, and you have the people already in there, because there's not really a lot of crazy football games on. Maybe they switch it over. Maybe they're even pre-tuning into the Washington Michigan game is on NBC and Peacock. Maybe they look and see, well, let's look over here, and you have these big names like Cody Roman, and then you have The Rock show up. It might be smart to open with it, honestly, but it's not like it's going to do. So I'm going to start from the top. Punk and Drew. This is probably going to be the WWE match of the year that's not named the Cody Roman match. I'm so looking forward to this. I hope they go full all the way with the blood, full all the way with the violence. I think this is going to be WWE's version of the MJF Punk match, and that's the standard I'm holding it to. Which is, I think, is a perfect match, which is MJF and Punk. And I think that's the standard I'm holding this to. That's the standard I hope they get this to. The last two matches have been kind of shenanigan filled. The special referee match at SummerSlam with Seth, it was good. It was good, but it felt like, okay, can we get to the big crazy violent blow off, which we want? And the strap match happened. It was good, but it was like the weird red light, green light stip, and it didn't feel like it hit that next level, which I love the match, by the way, but you can't really have a great match doing red light, green light. And I think this is where they've been saving it up. I think they've been saving the juices, figuratively and literally. And I think this is where we get to see a lot of blood, no pun intended, a lot of violence. And you could ask me yesterday, you could ask me tomorrow, my answer is going to be different, but it's going to be a heel-heavy card. I think Punk pulls this one off. You could ask me in 5 minutes and I could switch this up. It's a coin flip for me. I think you can have a good case for both guys winning, and I think it's fine if either guy wins. But I think with the build-up this has had, with how much Punk has been through, and this is only his, this is only his third singles match back. That's only his fourth total match back if you're not counting the one or two whatchamacallit, house show matches with Dom late last year and I think early last year as well. And I just don't see how you can bring Punk in all this and he loses to Drew. But then on the other same point, Drew's lost a lot. He lost the world title in 5 minutes. He lost Money in the Bank instantly, which is a decision I still hate. I still hate the fact that Drew won it and lost immediately same night. You know what? I'm switching up. I think it's more interesting. I think it might be a better narrative in if Drew wins. Because then you have Punk kind of trying to find himself, if that makes any sense. And maybe you could even... I don't think Punk is ever really going to go full heel. Maybe a little bit more of an edgy Punk after this over Drew. But at the same time, we had the Punk Gunther thing. I'm flipping it, and I'm gonna stick with it. Drew over Punk for Bad Blood, and I said it could go either way, and it would be a perfect way to go either way, as long as they don't do some dumb finish that they've done Hell in Cells in the past. I think it's a little bit more interesting to have Punk go through all this with Drew and lose than it is for Drew to go through all that and lose a Punk, because character-wise with Drew, it may be with him. It may be, he might even go crazy and go back to Punk, with his character. But if he wins this, character-wise for Drew, he can just move on and celebrate over this. But with Punk now, he's got to find himself again. Maybe he doesn't have it anymore. That's a cool story to do. And maybe even by Mania time, you may even actually have a heel CM Punk. I think that's such an interesting path they could go down. Next match, the women's title, Nia Jackson Bayley. Nia's been phenomenal on her return run. I really love what she's been doing. I really love what this title reign has been so far. If you would have told me about, 2 years ago, year and a half ago when Nia returned, that she would be on this kind of run, and I would have wanted her to win Queen of the Ring, and I would have wanted her to win the title and have her hold it for a good period of time, I would have believed you. Nia Jax has been phenomenal as in a return run, and title reigns, hasn't really had a signature moment yet, but it's been pretty good. She's been a good central heel, and I think she beats Bayley, but I think we start to see the first sign of Tiffany's going to cash in. I think sooner rather than later Tiffany's cashing in. I think they've already teased that, but I don't see as of now. I think Triple H is still going to stretch it out, as we all make fun of him for. He's still going to stretch it out. We're talk about the Cinema brother, but I still think he's going to stretch us out a little further. I still think you have a lot more legs with Nia as champion. And I think maybe Tiffany tries to look like she's going to cash in while Nia's not looking, and it ends up helping Nia win. Rather than that SummerSlam when Tiffany, it was the overt plan was she was going to help Nia win. I think it's going to be she helps her win, but it's not by a plan. So I think that's my prediction. Nia beats Bayley. Damian Priest and one half of the World Tag Team Champions, Finn Balor. I think Finn Balor's going to win this because I think Judgment Day shenanigans, and they're going to drag this further to maybe War Games, maybe. I don't know. And so I posted this on Twitter. It is a pet peeve of mine in wrestling, and I hate this too. When a faction wins tag team gold and uses it more of as a prop, or some shine they can hold up rather than actually having a good title reign. And that issue with the Judgment Day holding both tag titles actually a few months ago. And they're kind of running into the same problem again. And the thing is that Finn and JD are great wrestlers. They can put on fantastic tag matches, but they just aren't having matches. They aren't involved with the division at all. They haven't done anything with the belts. So I think eventually, hopefully soon, they move them on to I think it'd have to be a face team. I don't even know any faces teams on Raw. Maybe the mostly Machine Guns get signed and win. Fingers crossed, I hope. But I think Finn Balor wins this because Judgment Day shenanigans. And moving on to the next match, women's world title, Liv Rhea with Dirty Dom up in a shark cage. And it's just going to be a normal kind of shark cage match. I was never a fan of these. The finish is Dom's going to probably throw something down to Liv. And it ends up, with Liv pulling this one off just because I don't see Rhea getting the belt back yet. I may be wrong. But what's the next pay-per-view? Is it? I don't know if they have an October pay-per-view. Hold on. I did no prep work heading into this first podcast, and it's probably not a good thing. The pay-per-view calendar. Okay, pay-per-view schedule list. Thank you for still watching. I said it was going to be hopefully under 30, but it is over 46 minutes now. Okay, yeah, next pay-per-view is, next month, Crown Jewel. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna still stick with Liv's Hooker by Crook wins this one. And maybe you start to see, you know what? I think Raquel returns and helps Liv. That's my prediction. Because I think eventually this is going to lead to... Because, you know what? Actually, I think, Bloodline's doing the War Games. I think for the Women's War Games, you kind of have Liv and Rhea kind of go at it. And you have, Raquel kind of be the first on Team Liv. That's a good place to go. And I'm looking at the calendar. Oh, yeah, and Saturday night's main event's coming up. I think maybe Saturday night's main event is where Rhea wins the belt back on the first episode there. So, yeah, that's my prediction. I think Liv is going to win this one. Thanks to... honestly, what may happen, Dom passes like brass knuckles on to Liv. Rhea gets him. And it's like, oh, what's going to happen? Liv's done for now. Raquel comes in and helps Liv get the victory there. And it eventually leads to War Games. Main event, Cody and Roman versus Solo and Jacob Fatu. It makes sense for Solo and Fatu to win, but I just don't see how either Cody or Roman can really just take a loss. I don't know. I don't think you can bring Roman back and he immediately loses. And I don't think Cody should take a pinfall loss here. So, yeah, I'm going with Cody and Roman. And then after the match, the final boss returns, which is going to be sick. I love those memes on Twitter. I love them so much. At the start of the year, if y'all don't know me, I absolutely hated The Rock. Just because he would never come back. He would never face Roman. And then he would never do media appearances or anything. It was always so corny. Because for my entire life, because I'm only 21, I never got to experience The Rock at his heyday. I got to experience Dwayne Johnson. I never really got to see The Rock. And so now, finally, at 21 years old, I have finally been able to experience The Rock. In the final boss, this is The Rock. This is not Dwayne Johnson. This isn't the corporate man. This isn't Black Adam. This isn't the Tooth Fairy. This isn't whatever guy on Fast and Furious. This is The Rock. And I honestly never thought we would ever get The Rock back. Because I was always just going to call him Dwayne. And I'm so excited to see him back. And some may not want him to win the WWE Championship off Cody. I wouldn't be opposed to it. If he manages to kind of have like a schedule similar to what he did during Mania season, where he was on, if not every week, it was about every other week. He was on a lot for the road to WrestleMania. If he can manage to do that again with a belt, I wouldn't be opposed to it. he just makes it seem more prestigious, and he's just so entertaining, and he doesn't even need to have matches. He can go on 20-minute Twitter rants with his cowboy hat and drink tequila and be more entertaining than most champions out there ever, period. So, yeah, I think The Rock comes back here, and, we go from there. And now moving on to the NFL, because I'm already almost an hour in and I didn't want to go an hour, I'm just going to only really talk about the Carolina Panthers because that's my team, the team I keep up with the most. And this week we go up to Chicago in a game that I didn't know until I saw on Twitter that out of every game that's happening here in the United States, not the game over in the UK, this is going to be the highest ticket at any game. And, obviously, we don't count those London games anyways. We don't care about those Brits, if you will. And this will be the highest ticketed game because it's going to be DJ Moore's, revenge game against Carolina. It's going to be Caleb Williams playing the team and that he traded for the pick. Our pick ended up being Caleb Williams, who is off to a slow start in Chicago, but I think this is going to be a game where he picks it up. Andy Dalton's been a rejuvenation for this Carolina team and fan base, but I still think there's a lot more issues in quarterback. And now Bryce, he's still gonna be a good quarterback, just not in Carolina. So I do like this Andy Dalton. I like Deontay Johnson being more featured than what he was. Kind of used a lot in the Adam Thielen role, but better, in all honesty. But I still don't think Carolina can go up here and get a win. And just because the one reason I don't think so, and I think Andy Dalton's going to outplay Caleb Williams, film-wise, may not be stat-wise, but I think if you watch the game, you're going to know Andy Dalton's going to outplay Caleb Williams. But I think DJ Moore is going to be the modern version of the Steve Smith revenge game that happened almost 10 years ago, almost a day, when Steve Smith played Carolina when he was with Baltimore. I think it's going to be very similar. Yeah, our defense in general for the Panthers, it's been terrible. The past couple of years, even if the offense and a great team has been great, our defense has been phenomenal. Not this year. This has finally been the year that the defense has finally collapsed. And I think maybe offensively Carolina could somewhat try and keep up with Dalton and Chuba Hubbard, who's been phenomenal, and Johnson, who is currently hurt. But I think Leggett is finally his breakout. Jonathan Mingo, please get out. He has been a complete bust. He has not been great. If we drafted Mingo in the 5th or 6th round, I wouldn't really have a problem. He would, because he gives off 5th and 6th round wide receiver vibes. We trade up to draft him, and he's been terrible. In the 2nd round, he's been completely terrible so far in his Carolina career, and I don't ever see him turning it around. Leggett finally has a breakout now that he has a quarterback that can actually throw him the ball. Surprising, yeah, I know. Leggett's pretty good. But with Carolina, there's a lot more hope and rejuvenation now that we have a 36-year-old man under center, a guy who has been supposedly washed up for a couple years. It's not great, but I think if we can get some good assets for Bryce, it may be fine. I don't think we should draft the quarterback this draft class. I don't like any of the quarterbacks this draft, either their talent or I don't want Shador. I don't want the Dion thing in Carolina. We already have enough issues with Tepper as it is. I don't want us to have Shador. But I don't like Beck. I don't like Milroe or Ward as NFL prospects. And yeah, as I already said, with Canales too, he's great at reviving veteran quarterbacks' careers, not necessarily young guys. And it's crazy that we're not even a year and a half into the Bryce Young era and we're already looking to get out of it. I never thought it would get this bad with Bryce and this Carolina team, but as we've seen with Dalton, it's really kind of is on this quarterback here. And I just think that this team is built for a veteran, kind of needs like a veteran presence. And this current draft class doesn't have that. So I think we should look to maybe trade for a veteran, cheap guy, or sign a guy. I currently pulled up the free agents. They're going to be 2025 free agent quarterbacks. Darnold, no. Not back to Carolina. I don't think Lance gonna do great. Honestly, I'm looking at this. I think Jameis and Mack could fit in pretty well here in this Carolina team. Mack gives off kind of a younger Andy Dalton type of vibe. I think if you can get him in here in this right situation, we can kind of get to where he was kind of rookie year for the Patriots, where he's just a game manager type of guy. And I think that's honestly what Carolina kind of needs at the moment. A guy like that. And with Jameis, I just like Jameis. I think he can, if you're a bad team, you want a guy like Jameis in there because he's going to give you a chance to win. Granted, he's going to give you a chance to lose as well, but it's going to be entertaining nonetheless. And I think and I'm a big Jameis guy, and I think that's the kind of guy specifically that we should target this offseason to bring in under Dave Canales. And I think that would be phenomenal. A guy like Jameis and a guy like Mack. Those are two guys I think we should zone in on free agents, free agency wise. So yeah, with the game Sunday, I think it's gonna be pretty high scoring. Carolina's defense has not done great. Chicago, this at home looks like it's gonna be a breakout spot for Caleb and a breakout spot for DJ Moore because I think he's going to have, as I said, the Steve Smith type of game. Yeah, I think Chicago pulls this one out, but I mean, look out for Dalton. He's been cooking, and this Carolina team. I'm going to pull up the full schedule real quick for us. We have a rough schedule this year, but I think we can get them out 5 or 6 wins, which is after the first 2 weeks. That's better than what we thought we would get. In all honesty. And I hate that we're already after week 1 we were looking at mock drafts and whatnot. But yeah, with Carolina, with Kansas City coming to town, with Chicago on the road, a really good Commander team on the road, New Orleans again, Dallas, Philly, Tampa twice. I don't want us to draft a quarterback this offseason. Maybe we can get another defense. We need another offensive lineman. Ike Mekwonu has been a complete bust in the offensive line. When he's pass blocking, he's terrible. But when he runs block, he's pretty good. And that's what he was drafted for coming out of college, was he's the best run stopper we've seen in a while. So, yeah, he's good at that, but you got to do more as a blind side. And so I think if we can maybe move him to guard, we may solve some issues, but I don't know. It's a rough time. Yeah, maybe we can get another offensive lineman, Ike Mekwonu out of here, get as much as we can for Bryce. We may have something in 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years. Oh, man. Well, thank you all. Over an hour. I thought this would be 30 to 45 minutes, but we had a lot to talk about, and I am a ranter, and I don't write anything down. I don't write a script. I don't pre-record. I don't do none of that. I just go straight with the flow. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll take any questions. I'll answer all questions on any podcast ever. Maybe next week will be a lot more personal, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word or not. A lot more conversational. than this episode. But let me also know, I came up with I know about it on the fly. Maybe I should say I know about it sports with Noah Arnold. And it's a little better. That's a decent name. I love corny jokes. So yeah, maybe next week will be a lot more free flowing, a lot more conversational, and I'll try to keep it to 30 or under. But with that being said, thank you if you managed to listen to the full hour of me just completely ranting with nothing. I'm just yapping in a yap sesh for an hour. Thank you all.